Hey, good morning, folks. Good afternoon to some. This is Zach Hubeck with Wave. We are here with a couple of great guests, Erik Heinrich from RUCKUS and Jim Kerr with KB and Associates. And we couldn't be more excited to host an E-rate season, latest and greatest webinar for all of you. Hopefully you guys bring back great value from this session together. I've got a great couple of panelists here with me. And if you're longing for more information on how can I, as an integrator or a reseller in the RUCKUS channel, succeed in 2025? What can I be doing today to succeed in 2026? Man, this session is for you. For those of you that aren't familiar with Wave, we are one of RUCKUS's largest distributors. We have US and Canada representation, and we've been a RUCKUS distributor for over a decade here, and do a lot with our integrators and resellers involved in E-rate environments. We've got some specialized programs and terms to help you guys out, as well as staging, kitting, and other things. I'll get into that towards the tail end of our session. But why don't we start with our special guest here. Erik, good morning. How are you, sir? How you doing today?
Excellent, Zach. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. And Jim, looking forward to your session on this, folks. Jim's got a great product in E-rate ProfitWorks, really helping integrators and resellers succeed in E-rate environments. Jim, how are you this morning, sir?
Better than I deserve, Zach. Thanks a lot for having us.
Not a problem. All right, folks. So we're not going to death by PowerPoint you today. We're going to keep this open as more of a panel discussion. I've got a lot of questions for the fellas here. And why don't I start with you, Erik? So as far as 2025 is concerned, where are we at in the E-rate funding cycle, and how are things shaping up this year for RUCKUS?
Sure. So first of all, it was a fantastic year for us from what we can see today. In terms of where we are in the E-rate cycle, first of all, knowing that E-rate cycle is typically about is a 5-year cycle, right? And so we had just been in our 5th year of that cycle. And in terms of within that 5th year, we're in sort of, I would call it the middle of the cycle, in the sense of the Form 470s have been filed, which is where, all of you who participate in E-rate are very familiar with, right? Your bids have been submitted. If you're a partner, your bids have been submitted. The Form 471 awards have come out and were all published largely by March 26th, some stragglers beyond, but we're going to just, go with the big picture number. And so those have been awarded. If you're a partner, you should know what deals or what opportunities, what customers have awarded you their business and are going to be looking forward to doing business with you. So what are we doing now? Right now, we're sort of waiting, but there's more than you should be doing than just waiting. It's not resting on your laurels. It's a bit of watching, paying attention to what the status is from USAC. Whether there are going to be questions for more information from their school districts, from their filers, and just kind of staying on top of that in case there's going to be inquiries around information you can provide to your customers, those school districts, around products or your bid in general. Maybe there's some language they need clarification on, or whether there's individual products that are, that there's questions about within there. So there's things that you can be doing to just keep an eye on that, as well as maybe getting and gathering intel from your end customers to let them know that you were awarded. There's no quiet period at that point, right? It's been announced. You can start to collect information, check if there's any questions or concerns, things of that nature. And I'm sure you'll hear more about the specifics a little bit from Jim, who's got all the expertise there. But that's the general place in this E-rate cycle.
All right, very cool. Erik, you dove specifically into a quick product discussion right there. One that's pretty top of mind for us as a distributor, as well as some of our partners. The 7150 series has been end of life. So are there plans to replace that via global service substitutions? How can we help our partners today navigate some of that chop of the 7150 being EOL, sir?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. One of the things we try to pride ourselves on, RUCKUS, is to be easy to do business with. We try to remove as many barriers for our partners as possible. And so we are submitting a global service substitution, trying to eliminate the need for individual resellers to have to, perform a service substitution at that level. So we have submitted that. USAC has approved that. It is in place. And so for a vast majority of the 7150 SKUs, not 100% of them, but for a vast majority of them, they are being service substituted to an 8200. There are a few that for closer feature and function compatibility or comparability, which is required for the global service substitution, you have to submit a substitute for a like product with like functionality. We found it is better to substitute to a 7150 ZP. All of this information will be available, will be published publicly, should be coming out in any day, made available to the site. But for any of you who have questions, be sure to check with Zach, check with Wave. Wave will have all of this information and all of the inventory to help satisfy some of these substitutions.
Erik, thanks so much. Let's stick to products, but let's go more towards CloudPath right now. So typically CloudPath doesn't fit really neatly into E-rate eligibility requirements, but many of our partners have embraced CloudPath from a position of maybe offering it as a service. How should partners be approaching CloudPath and E-rate environments and really kind of prepping people for a foundation for 2026?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one thing that we've been encouraging our partners to do is to move in the direction of offering services, right? So to grow your business, you're going to see most likely the greatest growth as you start adding services into your portfolio to your customers. And also you're tapping into the trend that we are also seeing in terms of adoption of more managed Wi-Fi services in general. CloudPath makes a great fit. However, as you point out, like most other offerings that are onboarding solutions, that are not directly managing the Wi-Fi, that are not directly administering that service, they're not Category 2 E-rate eligible. So what we are seeing is our partners who are taking this product, and rather than selling the product, which is not eligible, right? So if they tried to put that on a Form 471 bid, it would be marked as 0% eligible. Rather than selling that product to the end customer, the partner consumes this product directly, stands up the CloudPath product, and provides some of those features and functionality that they deliver to their customers remotely and manage it for them remotely as well. This gives us two things. One, it allows you to enhance the quality of the service that you're delivering. So the experience for the customer who is receiving your Wi-Fi, managed Wi-Fi services, it can be personalized to your company's name when they log on to the Wi-Fi network. It provides a hosted portal, right, a captive portal for your users. Now that can have the school district's logos and customized colors on it. It can also include your branding on it as a Wi-Fi provider, and that is beneficial for you for stickiness long term, because it's the first place people see when they get on. You can only make one first impression, right? My mom taught me that a long time ago. Always dress nicely when you go meet somebody, and so I mention that all the time. I'll say the first experience somebody has with their Wi-Fi is the onboarding, right? And so if they're going to have a great experience, which we know with RUCKUS Premium Wi-Fi, that's what they're going to receive when they connect. The first hurdle is getting connected. So we want to make sure that we're giving them that great experience, but then also giving them that experience with a little bit of your logo on there as well. So you're doing a little bit of advertising along with that. The other thing that this allows you to do is to sell outside of the E-rate cycle. So you've just placed this bid, all of this stuff is coming, you're going to do this deployment. This is a great time to start planning how you're going to sell additional services into this customer over the rest of the year. E-rate's lumpy, right? You get one big deal for the year. So what are you doing with this customer for the rest of the year to grow your business? CloudPath is a great thing to position within there and help grow and expand your services set beyond just, what you're doing today.
And Erik, let me interject. As an MSP model, and with managed internal broadband services, or MIBs, you can fold some of this in, some of the CloudPath into your fees to the end user as an MSP. And so there's a little there is some gray area defined as management, operation, and monitoring of a network for the applicant as a MIBS or managed internal broadband services offering.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that we have Jim here. You know, as he says, there's some fine detail to it. So I'm cautious about what I encourage you to do on the side of, I err on the side of caution. But as Jim said, we do know some managed service providers are doing it, and it's sort of cost allocated across their entire offering. So it's not the only thing they're offering. They're offering many other things beyond just that one function that allows them to include those features within what they're offering.
All right. Love it. Yeah. You got the Zach and Eric questions, and then Jim comes in. He's like, here, boys, hold my beer. This is what we're talking about. I love it. Very cool. So, Eric, before we jump over to Jim, last bit of advice for partners. Where should partners really be focusing right now as far as this specific E-rate season?
So I'm kind of going back to the beginning, is really focusing like in this, it right now is looking at the intelligence around what your customer is going to want, right? You know, if you've been awarded. So from an E-rate perspective, you know what your customer's been awarded, what you have on your 471, finding a distributor who is going to give you the best set of services to deliver those effectively. And you're going to hear, Zach mentioned you're going to share some more of those things that you're offering. I'm really impressed with what Wave is doing, which is why I'm here today to help support this, because there were very specific things that I suggested that partners want and need that they're absolutely doing for you. So I'm glad you guys are on here. But from the customer's perspective, the school's perspective, go talk to them, right? This is a great time to start shaping your contract language. I'm sure many of you who are already in E-rate have that sort of template, but go find out from them whether there's anything specific that they're going to be looking for within that contract language. I even think of things like, do you have a truck with a lift gate? Do they have a loading dock? Right? I mean, these are such logistical, simple things that can make a huge difference. Do they have an elevator if you're going to be putting equipment onto a second, third, fourth, fifth floor of a building, right? Like, is it a service elevator? So there's logistic things that you can be thinking about on the customer side. Timing of the delivery, all of these things, the planning should be happening now. If you haven't already done so, hopefully you have. But then also on the back end, coordinating with folks like Wave to ensure that they can provide you with the products and services that you need to help deliver those logistical expectations from the customer. So you should be doing both of those. And if you had a great tool with like E-Rate ProfitWorks, you'd be able to monitor and manage the status, waiting for the funding commitment decision letter, FCDL that we're all waiting for, right? So you've been awarded, but now we're waiting for the government to say their little stamp of approval that the money is being allocated to this project. And prior to that happening, there's different statuses, right? Those FCDLs come out in waves, funding waves. So it's a bit of watching for your funding wave, making sure your end customers are paying attention when there's requests for them, because you don't want them to be distracted with other things, not reply to USAC in time, and then your deal gets impacted with delays or potentially bigger problems there. So eyes open, paying attention, talking to your customer.
I love it. Sage advice, Eric. All right, Jim, why don't we switch over to you? I know you'd prepared a slide for us today to take a look at. Why don't you go ahead and take over screen share control, and I will hold my breath and see if this works swimmingly. Do I need to stop share first, Jim, before you can do
Yes,
that?
sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right. I have stopped officially. Now you should be able to do so.
Okay, and pardon the background noise. I'm actually sitting in a parking lot right now. So the wonders of modern technology. I apologize.
You're at a school district asking them logistical questions. Do you have a pallet jack? When can this be delivered? All of those things. We know where you're at.
Yeah, I wish it were that quite that simple here. Screens. Why is it not let application windows screens? Advanced. It is not letting me do all screens. Huh. For some reason, it is not letting me do all screens, so I'm going to have to kind of bit back and forth here a little bit. I apologize. Let's start with this one. Where are we in this cycle? And Eric was mentioning a couple of things about proactively monitoring what your applications look like. So the E-rate rules say that by the time the 471 is filed, you have to have a legally binding contract in place. So you should know who your applicant customers are going to be at this point in time. We actually saw the first funding wave last Friday. So these are already getting funded. We saw a pretty good volume of them get funded as of Friday for internal connections. But where we are in the process, and excuse me, how we help monitor that is we actually send you an email proactively on a daily basis based on your spin, letting you know that, hey, this 471 is shifted from initial review to, oh, the reviewer has issued a 15-day letter, and you need to work with your applicant to help respond to that 15-day letter within 15 days. Otherwise, you get into a bad situation where it could potentially get denied if it goes on for too long. So monitoring that and not losing sight of all your hard work or losing your hard work is important. And that's what we really want to focus on right now. Where are we in this cycle? There are two things that should be happening as we speak right now as far as E-rate process is concerned. The first one is, if you in the screen, is looking at this April through August timeframe right here. So the 471 has been filed, and now we're looking at it and watching it. The very first thing that you should do at this point in time is look at your contract, the bill of materials in particular, and the actual Form 471, and ensure that they all align exactly. There's no ineligible services included. The applicant, when they actually did the application, didn't, miss an I or not cross a T, transpose a number, those kinds of things. During the receipt acknowledgement letter to funding commitment decision letter process is what's called Program Integrity Assurance Review, or PIA review. It's critical that you catch those mistakes early on and submit them as what's called a receipt acknowledgement letter correction, or have your applicant do it so that it goes in tandem with the application. You won't delay the funding commitment decision letter if you do it up front, A, and B, it'll smooth over that 15-day letter questions that automatically incur 30 to 45-day delays. So very first thing, review the application, review the contract, review the bill of materials, and make sure the sun and the moon and the stars align exactly. Once that happens and you see a funding commitment decision letter, then making sure that the applicant files their Form 486. That's the receipt of services acknowledgement form. It says, hey, we're going to start receiving services from RUCKUS partner XYZ on such and such a date. And oh, by the way, please release funding. And oh, by the way, third thing, we comply with the following rules of E-rate, including SIPA compliance. So all those things have to happen, and then you can end up getting paid. So making sure that those are ducks are in a row early on is vitally important. As far as what to do now on the other front, it is vital that you look at, stop sharing here. Start sharing again. So this is our software as a service. And the very first thing you'll notice on the front screen is introducing our E-rate ProfitWorks E-rate certification training program. If you are not intimately familiar with E-rate and want to gain a good basis of understanding of the program, we've developed a training module. If you have a existing license to our software as a service, we offer a discount, but it's kind of like driver education, or if you driving school, if you got a ticket. It's 13 modules, about 2.5 hours of content. I hope it will stretch you and make you think about E-rate in different ways, but it will certainly make you more successful in your E-rate process. And that's the whole goal. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to our software as a service. And then the thing that you should be doing now is planning for funding year 2026. It's just around the corner. The marketing process will start to really take off here this summer. And so you should start to plan for who you're going to talk to and what you're going to talk to them about. For the applications and our software as a service, And by the way, what we've designed here is a kind of a cradle to grave solution for managing E-rate process for service providers and partners. But the very first thing is our hunting list. And this says, I want to know what particular applicants have money to spend and what they have spent it on in the past. So we'll take Arizona as an example. And we'll say this is for last year because we haven't updated this with the new budget cycles. We're still kind of waiting to see what the FCC does as far as the cost of living increases goes. But we will have something up here in the next couple of weeks that will be a 2026 I guess kind of baseline. We think that so 2021 through 2025, the category 2 budget pre-discount was $167 per student. We think that that number is going to be closer to $200 per student over the next 5 years. So the budget numbers are going to change. And oh, by the way, it resets. So that's going to take a little bit of time. But let's talk about Arizona. Let's say we're going to look for 1,000 students and greater with 50% or more of their budget remaining as an example. And we're going to generate that. So there were 36 of those applicants, and we can see from the screen that there's a variety of information here across the screen about what they've spent year over year, how much money they had remaining, and did they actually file a Form 470 in the funding year for 2025 for internal connections. So in this example, for instance, we see that, let's see, the East Valley institution had available budget and were ready to spend part of their $389,000, and they filed a Form 470. That's all well and good, but it's not really extensive as far as the amount of information goes. So what we've done is we've taken this, created a CSV export methodology. And again, I'm going to have to stop sharing and reshare again when this thing pops open. I apologize for that, but
Pretty powerful tool, Jim. I know we saw the macro level, but pretty powerful right out of the gate. Well, let's dive into some of the details here. We see it.
So here we go with the category 2 budget dollars associated with their year over year spend over since 2016. And then we're going to actually tell you what they spent it on in high level and then in much more detail within some of these modules. So let's take an example here. I'm going to open this up a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. Let's take as an example, we have American Leadership Academy with 8,448 students. They had a total budget of $1.4 million to spend from 21 to 25. They spent in 2018, $335,000, in 2020, $89,000, and they still had $1.4 million left to spend in 2025, and they did not file a Form 470. They qualify for a 50% discount. They bought wireless at one point, they bought data distribution at one point, and they bought some cabling infrastructure at one point. And oh, by the way, they bought Aerohive gear back when they did it. This shows you the actual model number. So they were dealing with AP 250s from 2018. I would say that they are due to have a network refresh here, and they haven't done anything. So they're going to start with a new budget here coming up this year. I would be talking to those folks about a 7-year-old network that obviously is probably not sufficient for what they want to do today. So those are the details. We also tell you, we go a little bit further here. We can tell you that who your competitor was back in 2018, and then contact information regarding this specific entity. So notice that this is Sean Cusker, and if you look at, he's at E-Rate Exchange, and there's Tiffany, with director of operations with that organization. So Tiffany would be the main contact there, and she's the authorized person. Notice that E-Rate Exchange is sitting there as the consultant. And so just be careful of who is doing what to whom when you reach out to these folks, and make sure that you're not bugging a consultant, which will not get you in their good graces.
What a great icebreaker. Hey, we see you're still on 802.11G. It's about time you spend some of that E-rate funding you've been allocated.
And that is exactly the reason for the tool. And again, chapter and verse here. So you can pretty much set the table as far as what you want to do as far as your patch goes. and engage in that methodology to determine. And this is what we really recommend that you should be focusing on today. I don't recommend you start reaching out. There is such a thing as the E-rate hangover that occurs for about 60 to 90 days after the filing window closes, where nobody really wants to deal with new discussions about what I'm going to buy next year in E-rate. But certainly planning on who you're going to be contacting and laying out your marketing strategy over the next several months, so that when you hit the ground running in July to start the outreach, that you are actually contacting folks that make sense to contact.
Wow, cool. Jim, that's amazing. Great hunting list. Good prep work for folks for 2026. That's awesome. Jim, was there anything else you wanted to cover before I take screen share back, sir?
I think that if those are the takeaways today, I think you're going to be in good shape for the future. I'm happy to discuss this and how we can help and what we do as far as KB and Associates E-rate profit works.
All
You
right.
can find us on the website.
Very cool. Jim, I appreciate it. You guys can see big purple graphics on the screen now. Erik, Jim, yeah, we're in good shape.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So folks, let's get back to 2025. Erik touched on the tip of the iceberg in regard to logistical questions to be asked in the school. Jim talked about the Form 471, the 486, and then when the funding letter happens and when you ultimately can get paid. And Wave not only is a great logistical champion for you guys. Yes, shipping RUCKUS boxes out of the back dock is fun, but there's so many more things we can do to help and support you guys in E-rate environments. And this is a good summation of this on these slides. As a follow-up, I'll email both of these documents over to all of you that did attend today. But there are things like in preparation for 2026, we can do things like predictive heat maps for you. One of the things that we do for our E-rate partners is 90-day terms. So we understand by the time that 471 hits and the 486, you got to get moving on that install, and you may not ultimately get paid or funded for that project until it is complete and installed. We understand that. So if you have an awarded 471 letter to yourselves, a spin number, obviously, that's Jacks for openers. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that 471. But good standing with Wave. We'll look at a 90-day E-rate terms for you guys, because we understand you should be worrying about that install and not necessarily about cash flow month to month when you're trying to deploy a big project for a school district. We also can do a lot of things like staging and kitting. You may find within a district that here's our large PO and here's the Form 471 with all of the equipment we want to buy, but you may find that, hey, this district wants to split this equipment amongst 5 different buildings, amongst different IT directors are going to show up on these days. We want these many switches to go here, APs here, etc. And we can do staging and kitting, which is a fee-based service through Wave. But you spend your time at the school installing the hardware and not digging through boxes, putting labels on the access points themselves, or digging through marketing materials and unboxing a lot of product. We understand that, and we can stage and kit things for you so you can deploy that gear very quickly and move on to your next project. So we're there to help you guys. And then, of course, we talked a little bit about CloudPath and as a service, not necessarily in E-rate environment, but if you ever want to look at leasing products for projects outside of E-rate, if you are truly going to take that MSP or service provider approach, we do have leasing capabilities for you guys. And of course, we offer a lot of training sessions as well. So that's all I had from a death by PowerPoint perspective for the team. I'm going to look at the chat now to see if we have any questions coming through from the audience, and it doesn't look like we do at this point. Jim,
hey,
or
Zach,
Erik?
I got a question for you, Zach.
Please.
Yeah, so you mentioned leasing. One of
sir.
the creative things that's challenging, particularly as an MSP, is that you can sell gear or lease or rent gear under a managed internal broadband services model within E-rate. The problem with that is the payment has to go to the service provider of record. It
Sure.
can't be to a third-party leasing agency. If you have a methodology for a solution for that, that would be ideal for those MSP type service providers that are looking for it.
Beautiful. I love it, Jim. I can't say I have an answer in hand. I'm going to stick in my marketing swim lane, but I certainly know with our CFO and other folks in our accounting team, if we can in fact navigate that environment. And that's a great question I'll pose to them, and we'll circle back with the audience here if we can certainly help in that environment. Thanks for raising awareness there, Jim.
Yeah, and if I can kind of dovetail in this from a different perspective, you had asked me earlier, what we were seeing in E-rate, and one of the things that we noticed, and Jim can keep me honest here, was that when we map out the typical spend amounts based on a 5-year cycle, it's typically a U-shaped spend where the first year 1, you'll see very high spend of that budget, and year 5 as well, because it's use it or lose it, right? So whatever's left, they're going to spend every last bit of that. And historically, that in between, the 3 years in between of that cycle have been significant dips. So as a service provider, selling into this market, it's sort of feast or famine to some degree. And I may be exaggerating to a degree, but you tend to see a lot the first year and the last year. This cycle, this past 5-year cycle, it was much more flat. In other words, we saw more regular spending year over year, not perfectly flat, but far more so than previous cycles. My takeaway from this is that it actually supports the notion that school districts are going for more of this MIBS, this managed Wi-Fi service, and they're filing it more regularly on a year after year basis. They're buying and consuming their services delivered to them, and then paying for it through E-rate and filing for it on a yearly basis. So that ties into what Jim is saying here to help provide anything, any services that you think of providing. If you're currently just selling in one time, consider expanding your business to something more manageable that gives you more, a more sustainable, long-term, even sort of cash flow, as the business.
Cool. Great to point out those trends that you're seeing, Eric. And yeah, definitely. Jim, anything else, sir?
I got nothing. That's enough to chew on for one session, I think.
I love it. Well, folks, thank you all very much for attending today. We can only control so much in our lives. One of those things is our time. We are honored you chose your time to spend with us for this half hour. And hopefully you brought away 3 or 4 ideas or takeaways to help you all succeed, not only in 2025 E-rate season, but looking ahead and anticipating for 2026. So Eric, Jim, thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time today. This was great.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Zach.
Shout out to Julie and Mike for joining today. Saw your
Julie
names.
and Mike. Woo, woo, woo. All right, team. We'll see
All
you.
right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.